This episode is brought to you by our day jobs, always getting in the way of what we really want to do.
This is HOTDROP, where we bring you premier PUBG analysis and the most sunburnt of drops. I'm Cody.
And I'm Dano.
Now let's get into it. Oh, hey, Daniel.
Oh, hey.
What are we doing here?
A live show, episode 27.
Episode 27, titled, So Much Xbox, So Little Beardface.
And why is that, Cody?
Because Cody's been very, very busy at work this week and has been a slacker, shirking on his HOTDROP responsibilities, and Daniel's been picking up the load.
So much shirking. Shirking left and right.
So in today's episode, we're going to cover the most recent, let's call it a patch update. We're going to be able to round out some of our saltiness from last week, and we're going to go over Dan's copious notes on the Xbox.
Copious notes. I have so much to share, and I think we're going to have a lot of Xbox players in our chat tonight, so I'd like to get your feedback of what I'm about to talk about as I talk about it. Do you want to kick it off with the PC update number 6? We've got a few updates. We've got some new crates to talk about.
I was just going to say, we can jump right into PC 1.0 update number 6.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
Ready to roll. Yep.
Go for it. Take it away.
So the initial portion of that entire article was that they're like, hey, remember that one time where almost every single person that covers this game was really salty last week during their episodes, and they decided that they were going to rag on us? Well, here at Bluehole, here are some crates. And we said, oh, boy. And so pretty much what Bluehole did is I think they realized that Fortnite was starting to kind of wreck their numbers, and that everybody who was playing the game and is a prominent member of this PUBG following was really complaining about how they haven't done anything lately. So they gave us 2 new crates. One's a key and crate system, and the other one is just a random free one with some Miramar and Erangel inspired outfits. Some of them look pretty cool, but I've kind of given up the idea that the crates are the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And then they kind of said, hey, for reasons that we can't tell you, we haven't been able to share our roadmap with you lately. Please, please, please hang around. We promise we're doing some cool stuff. And then they dropped the hammer that we're also working on a new map that you're going to get in 2018. And we all went, what?
Yeah. So I want to touch on this really quick because I saw a article by GameSpot, and the title of that article was talking about the crate system, but the title was "New PUBG map is coming by July," and that is not at all how I read the patch note, the description of the patch notes. So their wording, if I can find this, was saying how they're going to release the roadmap by the end of March. That's how I read that. But then I looked at what GameSpot wrote, and they took that as saying, by the end of Q2, we'll have a new map. And that's not at all what I thought they said. So let me see if I can find their exact wording. They say, in March, the team will reveal what you can expect from us in the first half of 2018 in terms of our development and new content plans, which, by the way, include a new map. So GameSpot took that and said, by the first half of 18, we'll have a new map. And I don't think at all that's what that means. Did I read that right? What do you think?
I would disagree. I think that means in the first half of 2018, by the end of quarter 2, we're going to get a new map.
So I read that as saying they will reveal their new plans, which include a new map, and that's all we'll get by the end of that second quarter.
I think that their roadmap explains to us what the first half of 2018 is going to be, which is a new map.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see.
And
but that's
some
just
content.
interesting.
But here's the thing: why say that we can't tell you some of these things, and still tell us that they can't tell us?
Yeah. Right. We touched on this last episode.
Welcome to detail.
I don't need the carrot. I just don't tell me that you can't tell me. Just don't bring it up. Don't make me angry, because you won't like me when I'm angry. Because I'll get on my podcast and I'll rant about you.
Oh man,
Stupid.
stupid.
Anyway, so let's maybe cover the stuff that they are changing in these patch notes for number 6, which isn't a ton. It's mostly the crate system, but here we go.
Sure.
In the lobby, they've added a friends only invite preference option on the friends list. You can choose to receive all friends only, block all via drop down menu. You can invite players directly from the career screen, and invite button won't show if the player is offline or unable to be invited. So it's just not going to pop up anymore, where before it would show a non-distinct logo, I guess, for that. Or they'd say they're in game or they're not able to before. Now it just won't be there. They introduced this new crate system, which is they added the 2 new, one's free, one's paid. New paid crates, Fever, can be obtained separately from weekly crate screen, and you can now open the paid crate box with an early bird key, which is purchasable in the Steam marketplace.
Yeah, so we've got 2 different crates here. One is the same crate system we've seen all along, where you can unlock only a certain number of those per week. I believe it's 6 or 7 crates you can open every week, because that's just the max before they sell out. But then the Fever crate, however, you can buy as many as you want, and there's no limit to that. And you buy a key to open that crate as well. So some people are saying this is a good thing. I heard it from WTF Moses, I think his tweet said that he thought this was a good thing because for those of you who have spent a lot of time accumulating your battle points, you can now drop a ton of those battle points on these crates, and it's unlimited as far as how many you can purchase. So that's the slight difference here as far as these 2 crates. The other one is just, exactly what we've always seen before. And they talk about the drop rate of the crates. We have the Survivor and the Wanderer crate, the 2 crates we've seen from the very beginning. Those drop at a 10% chance each. We have the Biker and the Desperado crate, which we also have seen since around 1.0, I think, at 20% for each of those. And then Militia is the name of the new crate, which drops at a 40% rate. And this is what I'm talking about when you click that get crate button on your main menu. These are the odds of getting those crates.
Yeah, absolutely. And they kind of give us a rundown of the different items that come in that. So if you're getting a 40% chance of getting this Militia crate, you have a higher chance of getting their rarest item than you do in, like, say, the Desperado crate, which will now come in at 10%, and they have things that spawn just as unlikely percentage wise, which will be interesting for those of you who care about aesthetically pleasing costumes or things that allow people to spot you better.
Yeah, that's Militia crate. They talk about the drop rates of all of the items inside it. So it goes all the way from a tank top gray. This is stuff we've seen from the start of the game. I think we've seen tank tops at 20% chance of getting that item, all the way down to the military skirt black, and you have a 0.0064% chance of getting the military skirt. So you can imagine once these things become unlocked and selling on the Steam market, these things are going to go for massive, massive amounts of money.
Mm-hmm. And so moving forward past this crate thing, they did change one thing in the world to help ease the server response, which they replaced a lot of breakable fences with unbreakable fences. So we're going to have to watch out for that when we play. And it's just in Miramar, apparently, that they have just replaced a bunch so that they don't have to get as much response time from the servers running through destructible fences. They don't exist as often anymore.
Yeah, I haven't tested this yet because I haven't got a chance to play, so I'm wondering what fences exactly were replaced. So I'm going to be driving along tonight once we drop into our drop night, and I'm probably going to be running into fences that I thought I would be able to drive through, but no longer since this update.
For sure. In terms of gameplay, when a player is riding in the airplane, they won't be able to see inside of the plane anymore, which is something that almost every single player does to see how many people are dropping where, right? Mm-hmm. You go, oh, look at all the people dropping out of the plane before you get to the school, and then you get to like Severny, and you go, okay, there are clearly like 7 people left, and 4 of them are us. They have changed that so that, again, they can improve the response time from the servers, and they have added an indicator of the number in the bottom left-hand corner to be able to check the remaining number of passengers. So if you look at the bottom left of the screen, instead of seeing into the plane, you will just be able to see how many people are left inside of the plane, which I think, great. If you want to improve the servers and you want to block us from seeing inside the plane, give us something, and they did.
I think that's a reasonable compromise. Yeah, I like that actually more because you can even more accurately see how many people are inside the plane when you jump versus like sort of guessing how many people are still there by sight. So that's cool. I like that change, honestly.
So do I. Replay system. They've changed the way that you can report people through the replay system. You will now receive a 1-minute replay file centered on the point of your report. It is impossible to report a replay file which has been created longer than a week ago, and it is impossible to report the same player multiple times in the same replay file. I think that's their way of kind of trimming down their ability to spam everything. So a lot of people will go back and report somebody 3 or 4 times in every possible way that they can, and they want more accurate information. And they want to be able to narrow it down because I think they are trying to make strides on the cheating. And if they get better responses from cheating, then they will be able to more effectively ban people.
Yeah, that's a good change too. I mean, people shouldn't be reporting the same person multiple times. It just leads to inaccurate data. So that's a good fix.
On to the bug fixes. They fixed an issue where players would die from falling when vaulting or climbing over even like other little things. So that won't happen anymore. They fixed an issue where after reconnecting to the game, the player would get glitched view using ADS on their weapon. Was that where you could essentially see across the map through things?
I think so, yeah. Every once in a while, yeah, you'd come back and you'd scope in, and then all of a sudden you're looking across the map, across the ocean. And it's just a very weird, distorted picture.
Yeah. They've also fixed the issue where the player didn't receive any damage after entering a vehicle from a prone position and then exiting while the vehicle was moving. A couple of times I feel like we experienced that where I thought like, oh man, did they change that where you don't take damage anymore? But it was just a glitch, unfortunately, because I hate taking damage even when you're just kind of coming to a crawl.
Yeah, I guess that only mattered when you were entering the vehicle from a prone position. That's kind of an interesting thing. I don't ever remember entering a vehicle while I was laying down, but I guess that could happen, and they fixed that. Sounds like a little bit of an exploit.
Indubitably. And miscellaneous section for this patch. They made changes to prevent reduced heal boost time cheat.
Yeah, I think that's the last bug fix, maybe, unless I read this incorrectly, which was when entering the vehicle, a passenger seat specifically, from the prone position and using healing and boost items, the player was shown using the items in prone position instead of sitting down. So no, actually that's not. I stand corrected. It looks like they were having some kind of exploit there, so I don't really know what the reduced heal boost time cheat is.
I don't think that I don't think I've ever seen any replay or anything of somebody healing or boosting faster.
I mean, it's seen that. No,
it must be a minuscule amount though, because it's what 5 and 7 seconds are like the longest you'll have to wait for anything. So
yeah, very weird. So at least they're calling out certain cheats though.
Yeah, I mean, identifying things that we maybe not notice might give us a better idea of what we're not seeing, which might be why they're bogged down a little bit more. Things that we don't understand, the things that we don't notice while we're playing.
I think this is the first time they've specifically called out a cheat and said what it is, and then said they're making changes to fix it. I've never seen them call out any specific cheat or kind of exploit that people are doing in the game, because I feel like they don't want to give people ideas.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So anyway, yeah. What's next? Is it time for Xbox?
Dan has so much information to throw at all of you about the Xbox, and it is detailed, and it is 2 pages.
I'm so excited to talk about this. All right, so
take it away, Dano.
I started out playing PUBG a very long time ago. It had to be about April of this year. This game came out in March, and I think I started in April. So I've always been playing on PC. I've been along for a very long time, along on this bumpy ride. Mostly smooth, very fun ride, but bumpy at times. And I've pretty much got the PC version completely figured out. Like, I've played it enough where I know what the bugs are. I've, have enough hours where I know the game inside and out. But I don't know anything about Xbox, and I really wanted to get some experience there. Buy an Xbox, loaded the game up, and see what the difference is between what I'm so very much used to playing on PC versus what you guys on Xbox are experiencing day to day when you guys play. Like, I've read a lot about it, and I've watched some videos. I've watched certain people play the game. Downward Spiral, in particularly, he's in our chat room. Watched him play many times, so I know some of the frustrations that he has. We've talked about some of the inventory issues, but I've never experienced these things for myself, and so I really wasn't feeling like I could really talk about them with any air of authority. So I took it upon myself to buy an Xbox. Bought it off of eBay. Took like 2 weeks to get here, unfortunately, but finally did. And I fired the thing up, bought PUBG, went into my first solo match. So the very first thing I noticed there were no shoes on my character on first boot. Literally unplayable, turned it off, and went to bed. I'm kidding. I just thought that was kind of weird. I had fully clothed character, but no shoes on. The new menu looks exactly the same as PC. So that main menu you see on Xbox, basically exactly the same thing. But I did have some trouble finding the settings menu, which was kind of weird. It's kind of a weird thing to call out, but I was looking for my control layout, and there is no option in that main menu to select settings. It's sort of buried. You have to hold a button on the controller to get there. So that was just a kind of a strange thing that I noticed right off the bat. I missed the old music, the old lobby music from original early access PUBG and PC. I remembered that. Just made me think about it when I was sitting at the menu. But anyhow, I broke my notes up into early game, looting, movement, fighting, and overall. So I have a lot to talk about, and I'm super nerding out on this, but I love this stuff. So the very first thing was I booted up the game and went into a solo match, and I loaded into Spawn Island. And the first thing I noticed was that weapons are back, and I do not miss them whatsoever. People were picking up guns and shooting each other from those picnic tables on Spawn Island, just making a racket and just overall being annoying. Do not miss the fact that they took those out. I'm really glad they took that out, because it's just a waste of time. But on the flip side, for Xbox players, every little bit of practice counts when you're a new player, and especially with the controller. For me, I was able to grab a weapon off one of those picnic tables and shoot it in a little bit and kind of feel what the recoil was like, and then feel my sensitivity out a little bit. So that was nice to have.
Haptic feedback on it?
There is. So I actually wanted to bring that up, and I thought it was weird, and maybe you guys who have played it a little bit more can tell me. The Xbox One has haptic feedback on the triggers, like on the actual triggers, not on, well, I think it also has it on the actual controller body itself. So when you fire a weapon, like, you feel it in the trigger. But I think because there's a delay, the game isn't running as smoothly as it could. I noticed I would shoot and then feel the feedback like a second later. So it was slightly out of sync with how I was shooting. But it was a cool thing to see, because like we haven't had any kind of feedback on a mouse. So it's a little more immersive. I kind of like that, because I could feel the shot going off. That's kind of a cool thing. So yeah, my first drop was in Primorsk. I was alone and very far away from the circle. The buildings loaded in, and I ran into the first house that I saw, but no objects inside the building had loaded. So when I walked in, no tables or chairs or dressers, no loot. It took a solid about 4 to 5 seconds for stuff to appear, which I think is something that we do see on PC still, especially if you don't have an SSD. If you're working on a regular mechanical spinning hard drive, you're going to see sort of the same thing. So it's nothing new. It just kind of sucks that they couldn't figure that out yet on the Xbox version. The next thing I thought was that parachuting seemed to take a little bit longer, and I could be wrong on this, but it felt like it took a really long time to get to the ground. It felt like the process was just slower, and that could have just been because I hadn't played in a while, and the game maybe was running a little bit slower. I'm not really sure, but that's something I noticed. Maybe I was just really anxious to get into a match. I don't know. I thought using the mini-map was okay. Simple things like dropping and clearing pins were kind of annoying, just something that I needed to get used to. I think it's just because, I'm not used to the controller, and I had to read the instructions the entire night, basically keep flipping back to the controller profile to see what buttons I should be pushing. So it was just a little bit cumbersome, but overall it's basically the exact same thing on PC. So now on to looting. So inventory management, it's as bad as I expected it to be. Yeah. So I was running along at one point, and I found a new primary weapon I wanted to switch out. And I legitimately sighed and was just like, okay, how do I do this? Because on the PC, I would tab, I would grab that weapon, I would drag it out, and I would just replace it with a new one. But you couldn't do that on the Xbox. I had to read the instructions at the bottom of the menu and figure out how to drop the weapon. There's a couple different things that are good about the inventory system that they try to do. So the game tries to be smart and highlight where attachments should go, and this saves some time and clicks. You can hold X when looting to put the attachment right on the equipped weapon, which is a nice usability feature, but they need more stuff like this. I had a tough time like just figuring out what weapon was highlighted in the UI, how to drop that weapon, how to swap that weapon from the second slot to the first slot in my UI. Just little things like that. It just took me a really, really long time to work through. But I mean, I think it all just comes down to me spending more time and really working with the game and learning it and just getting that muscle memory for how to loot. It's no different if I was to start a game on a PC for the first time. You know, it's just a matter of just learning the controls. So that's the first
I
part
remember
of it.
what it was like when I first started playing. I mean, if you go back, well, what episode did I join do that first interview on? Like 11 or something?
Yeah, pretty far back,
like,
yeah.
I was like using my pointer finger on W, and I was like, "Oh my god, how are you doing this so fast, Dan?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "What do you mean?"
Exactly like that. So I'm that.
WASD was a thing.
I am that to every other Xbox player out there right now who's been playing this for a month or two. Yeah, I'm just really slow with the controller. It's pretty bad. It's just it's just muscle memory, and it's just knowing what buttons to push, and that would just make it go so much faster. But the UI doesn't really help you. Like the fact that you have multiple columns and you have to toggle through each column and then scroll down to different things and then select the attachment and drop that attachment. They need more quick shortcuts like that hold X to detach all attachments. Little things like that are going to really help people loot a lot faster and speed up the game overall. Because that's the one big thing I noticed about Xbox is the game overall, the gameplay is just slower. Because everyone is doing things slower. They're navigating around the map slower. They're working their inventory slower. And that sort of affects the game meta, if you will. Like, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but cars at the end of the game are a real thing. And
Wow.
We'll talk about that. Yeah, it was very weird because you hear the cars coming in and you can't do anything about them because I know I'm not fast enough to shoot the guy out of the seat. So, the looting, I mean, that's the biggest thing I need to work on. I really think that. I don't know how to make it better. We had some ideas. I think you had a couple ideas about looting by category or looting by a tiled layout.
The tiled layout, I think, is a really good way to go, especially if it gives you the number of items that you have. So if you're scrolling over and you have different kinds of ammunition or attachments or whatever, it'll say extended quick draw magazine AR2. Because, sometimes you pick up for your friends or you do whatever, but like that'll give you a good idea of what you can select and what you can't select, and it automatically highlights where you want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can only go to so many places, You have the option to drop it, leave it, or attach it. Boom.
KK says this is a person in chat, says he's learned to love the columns. It's a lot slower to use, and there has to be some way to improve that. Yeah, I completely agree. It's basically what we just said. There has to be a way to improve that, but it's muscle memory, I think. I think we can move on to movement. So the good thing about this game and using a controller to control your character is that there is no separate button to move side to side, backwards, forwards. It's all one stick. So I felt like I could control my player a little bit better, to be honest, because I could sidestep and also move forward at the same time using the thumbstick versus having to press W and A to move forward and left at the same time. So I kind of like that about it. I felt like I was able to be a little bit more precise when running in through doorways and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Holding B to lay down absolutely sucks. Really not a fan.
You have to hold it down?
You have to hold B. And the reason I don't like this is because I will use lay down when I'm under fire. And when I'm under fire, I want to drop to the dirt as fast as possible. So there's like a solid second you have to wait before your character actually drops to the dirt. So that's why I don't like that at all. I'm going to be nitpicking on little controller things. And I think probably at the end of early access, they will be able to have you completely remap the controller however you want it. So maybe like a double tap for B. But holding B to lay down sucks. Holding X to reload totally sucks. I hate it. I want to double tap X or single tap X. Either way, holding a key when it's a function you use all the time and a function that you need a very quick reaction time for is a terrible way to go about it. Really not a fan of that. Frame rate overall on the Xbox I think was okay. I'm bouncing around a little bit here, but the view distance was definitely pretty low. I think it was probably the equivalent of taking a PC and dropping it all the way down to low. I drove in a boat from Primorsk to the military base, and it took a while to see even the trees spawn on the island. So that's something they can improve on. The cool thing about driving, though, there's a couple cool things. So when you enter into a boat, you can hold A to move to the driver's seat. That's a cool feature. It's like hitting Control 1 on the PC. You can just hold A, jumps to the driver's seat. Double tap A to change seats. It'll rotate you through the different seats. That's pretty cool. But when I got into the boat for the very first time, it inverted my X-axis.
Oh, boy.
And I was like, what is going on? I guess this is just how my life is now.
In the chat,
go to my settings and change that.
And talking about different things that you can and can't change in that, Downward Spiral thinks that you should be able to turn off lean because he does it accidentally so often that it gets in the way of being able to do it tactfully.
Yes, that is something I didn't write down in my notes, but something I mentioned, I thought to myself as I was playing, because I didn't even know what the button for lean was. I sort of stumbled on it, and I was doing it at times where I didn't mean to do it. So I 100% agree with you on that.
That's interesting. KK writes, the fact that looting is so slow, it almost adds a new strategy element. It becomes a risk versus reward situation. It's not great, but it makes the last circles way more intense.
Interesting.
Maybe because that changes the meta so quickly by adding more time, because meta happens only because you have to do a certain thing in a certain amount of time to get the best reward from it. Mm-hmm. And so being able to have more time, knowing that everybody else is taking the same amount of time to loot, your meta in the game is then affected by it, makes your last circles more interesting because everyone's had more time to choose what they have in their inventory without getting caught with things that they don't need or don't want. You have what you need, or you have the things that you've chosen to have, and there's no in between.
Yeah, this is versus like the PC side. Maybe a circle's closing in and it's getting intense, but I'm so quick with my inventory, I can just run over that box, grab whatever. It's sort of like on the Xbox side, you have to go to that box knowing exactly what you need and not going over to it just to check what's in it and maybe grab something good. Yeah. It's like you run over that box thinking like, oh, I'll just see what's in it. You probably wouldn't do that on the Xbox because you're going to take so long to scroll through that and you're going to be a sitting duck while you do that.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Continuing on.
The controls have a steep learning curve, says McCoolin. Hey, yes, I would agree with that. I just kept going back and forth, checking out what is my controller layout, how do I do the thing I want to do. And I'm going to get to this at the end, but it's all because I know how to play this game so well that going over to the Xbox, it's like I feel like I have a hand tied behind my back because I know what I have to do and I know how to do it. But I don't actually know how to do it with this controller.
Not with
it was holding me back. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit.
And we had talked about it before, is that the fact that they keep changing their buttons so much, the configuration of the controller so often with these little tweaks, it's got to be hard for even people who play it all the time to adjust constantly to the little changes that they're having on the controller.
Yeah, and it would affect me for sure because I, as a casual Xbox player, probably wouldn't be checking the release notes that much, and I would try to do something and my controller scheme would be messed up and I would be really confused why that would be. They do have two controller schemes. I don't know if you guys saw this in settings, but you have controller scheme A and B, I think it was. And this is the one big difference between these two that I saw was that it gives you that hold left trigger to aim down sights, or the other one gives you just the tap left trigger to aim down sights, which is controller scheme A, which is the default. So I went with that default because I'm used to just tapping to aim down sights, but I could see, like, coming from Call of Duty, for example, you would want that other controller scheme to be able to hold down left trigger, and that's just a little bit more familiar to you probably. So that's just something to check out. If you guys haven't seen that, there is a second controller layout that you can choose from. Let's see. So a couple other weird things I noticed. So I kept opening the map when I meant to open my inventory. And I thought about this for a while. I'm like, that's such a stupid thing to complain about because it's just a left button, like a left menu button or a right menu button on your controller. But the reason why I want it to be the right button and hit it with my right thumb is because I want to run with my left thumb. So I want to be able to run with my left thumbstick and then be able to toggle my map on. And I can't do that if that button is the same button I would need to hit with my left thumb, which is already being taken by the left thumbstick. So I want the map button to be on the right side and the inventory button to be on the left side. So I don't know. That's just my personal feeling on that. But I don't know. Some other people might like the ability to open your inventory while you're running. Personally, I would probably rather want to open my map. It was just some kind of natural movement. I kept hitting that button and accidentally opening my inventory when I meant for the map. The med system is really good. So I'm kind of blanking a little bit on this right now, but I believe what you can do is on the D-pad, select left, down, right, up to select the different types of meds. And then you press...
That's the weirdest way to describe the original.
Left, down, right, up. Yes. You got it. You got it. That picks your meds. And then you hold it to activate the med. So I like that. It gives you the different icon popping up at the bottom, showing you what you have highlighted, and then you press and hold. Yeah, tap down on the D-pad for what you want. Downward spiral says, and then hold down to use. Yeah, so it actually cycles through the different meds that you have. So I kind of like that. I mean, obviously I like a hotkey better because it's a quick. I know I press 7, yeah. I'm gonna get the thing I want.
But you can never remember all the hotkeys.
You never can. Nope, you never can. So that's a good thing you can just cycle through and do. So, actually, bouncing back, I saw KK in chat says the map thing is definitely a problem. He still does it after many hours. So there, I'm validated. Thank you.
Thank you, chat.
And Downer Spiral says it's right on the D-pad for grenade, up for pistol. So that's
that's a lot. That's a lot of weird configuration.
It's a lot to remember. But you can do a lot with the D-pad, so I like how they gave you all of that stuff because clicking up for pistol is a quick way to pull out your sidearm. I mean, it's not necessarily something that you're going to do all the time, but maybe in Xbox, when you're whiffing a whole lot of shots like I was, I might want to switch to my pistol quickly instead of reloading. I don't know. But I like how it gives you that flexibility if you want to play like that. It's a sure. quick action. So shooting, fighting, aiming, what this game is all about. Aiming is freaking hard, man. I was garbage. I was really, really bad. Any of you guys in the Discord want to pop in there, go to the clips section and look at me just absolutely making a fool of myself, spending an entire clip tracing a bullet path behind a guy as he was running by me inside a house. At that moment, I turned up my aiming sensitivity and turned down my general sensitivity. The long story short here is I just need muscle memory, and that's pretty much it. I'm garbage with the controller. You guys might be better, but I found that especially when you hold left trigger to aim over the shoulder, so you have the tap to aim down sights, but then hold it to aim over the shoulder. When you do that, it lowers your sensitivity slightly. So that little bit of lowered sensitivity made it so I couldn't catch up to the guy that I was trying to shoot. So I kept tracking him, but I was just a step behind him every single bullet. So at that moment, I turned up the sensitivity to try to combat that. So that was just a little tweak I had to make. Because like on the thumbstick, when you press all the way to the left, like you just max out. And that's all you get, right? But on a mouse, I can pick up my mouse, flick my wrist over, and then drag it faster. But you can't do that on a thumbstick. So it's just a learning curve, and it's just a muscle memory thing, and I'll get it eventually. But aiming is tough, especially with scopes, because those small movements to adjust your aim with the scope. You can adjust your aim sensitivity, which is good, and I recommend that if you're having trouble. But I also recommend you just set it and you forget it, because that's how you learn. to get your muscle memory to stay solid and just learn that how much you need to move that stick to move it as far as you want to move it. It's the same thing with playing with a mouse. Lower the sensitivity as far as you can is my outlook with the mouse, and then just play with it, and then eventually you'll be able to learn it via muscle memory. So it's going to be very hard on the Xbox to learn how to control automatic spray. So that's something that I want to be better at. And it's something that I think is sort of like a higher tier or a better, something you learn as you get better in the game is to control that automatic spray. I don't see myself trying that anytime soon with a controller. It's going to be really hard for me to do that. So I'll stick to single fire and just tap, tap, tap. But on the PC, I'm trying to teach myself how to do that full auto fire from medium ranges to just get more bullets on someone. But that's going to be a lot harder to do on the Xbox, I think, with my poor controller skills. So the one thing missing that I found, and this is actually a decent thing that they need to add, and it's something that you will notice if you saw on PC. So when you are aiming over your shoulder on PC and not aiming down sights, and you're trying to shoot through a doorway or outside of a door, outside of a window, you will see that little red crosshair pop up on your screen. And this happens when your bullets are going to hit the door frame instead of going through the door. And they don't have this little red indicator on the Xbox. So that's something you got to watch for. Because of the camera angle change, you will think that you're going to shoot through the doorway, but it's actually going to have your bullets hitting the door frame instead. And on PC, it gives you that visual indicator that that's going to happen, but that doesn't happen on the Xbox. So that's just a heads up for that. If you're wondering why your bullets are shooting a door frame, obviously you will see that what you're doing and fix it. But it's just like a nice little visual indicator on the PC that you're gonna miss your shot. I think I definitely overall preferred first person on the Xbox. I don't want people being able to corner peek me or see me over objects, and I think that I want every little advantage I can get on the Xbox, so I think first person is probably the mode I'd much more prefer. I made it to top 5 in my first game with 1 kill, so that was pretty cool. But getting to top 5 made it so that I could tell that cars, like I mentioned earlier, are definitely a thing in the end game.
How did you notice right away?
I noticed right away because I was holed up in like a 2-house complex, and I had cars coming at me from all directions. Like every time I would get a new position or just sit there, I would hear a car coming from another direction, and another car, and another car, and another car. Like everyone was converging on the same location at the same time. And then like I was trying to maneuver, and I saw people running, getting into cars, and just like driving around the whole complex. And
that's so weird. I can't even fathom that in the PC game.
Because I couldn't do anything about it. And like I knew that my skills were garbage and I would not be able to shoot them out of the car. But if I was on the PC, I would just drop those guys immediately. So it's definitely a change to the pacing of the end game. I want to ask you guys if you see that as well. But I definitely noticed that at the end game. There were so many vehicles in this tiny little circle, and I felt pretty much powerless against them. There were times where I was running for a tree to get out of the way of a car that was trying to run me over. And even then, I felt like I couldn't take out the guy in the driver's seat. I just felt powerless against him. So that's something that they tried to adjust recently with a patch to increase the damage to vehicles, the damage that vehicles take when they take fire. And also they wanted to decrease the damage that the vehicle gives to a player when it hits them. They rolled back that change, so I don't really know. I wish I was playing more at Xbox at that time. What are you munching on over there? I hear that.
Or any Xbox.
So yeah, I don't know. I want to know what you guys think about that end game. If that affects you, if you don't mind it, if it's just something that, is part of the game. I'd like to hear your guys' opinions. But overall, my experience was good. It was a little like stepping back into a time machine. It was an old build. Things like weapons on Spawn Island were weird to see, and because they just recently took them out. There's no Miramar. It's all Erangel. Overall, I am garbage with the controller. And I think all of my negatives and all of my frustration that I had with the Xbox is just because of that controller. I think if I'm patient, if I learn the controls well, and I become better at aiming, I'm going to be a much better player, and the little things won't get to me as much. I think that's just strictly on me for that. It goes for aiming, moving around, navigating the menus, looting. Every single game item that I'm like annoyed with is just traced back to the controller. But all that said, frame rate could be better. It was pretty low. One thing I didn't mention about the frame rate, when you're flying in the plane, the mini map at the bottom right absolutely chugs. Frame rate is horrible. It's getting like 5 frames per second. It's very weird.
God.
It's not unusable, but it's just something that I noticed immediately because that little map just moves like so slowly. So yeah, it's the same experience, I think, on PC. There's small changes, like the car stuff at the end. I just thought overall the game was a little bit slower is all. Same differences or small differences in the meta with the vehicles. But there was less hacking from what I saw. I didn't see any cheaters in the probably 5-10 games I played.
It's got to be harder to cheat on the Xbox.
I would 100% agree with that. I think we talked about this a while back, but it's probably pretty difficult to get into the file system of an Xbox, and that's why. So I appreciate that. It's a nice change, and not being able to go against hackers every game and obvious ones. But also, it felt like everyone I faced was on a pretty level playing field. I didn't really think that I was horrible or everyone else was amazing. Versus on PC, when I go against people in a game, it just feels like everyone is a god and I'm terrible. But I felt that a lot of people were on the same.
God and I am not.
Yeah, I'm a god. I'll call that.
Gotta wake up earlier than that.
Gotta wake up earlier than that to beat Dano. No. Yeah, it's just like on the PC, you just get sniped from out of nowhere, but I didn't really notice that happening so much on the Xbox. I think people are overall sort of at a more level playing field and less of a skill ceiling. But I don't know. That's just my experience from a limited couple games that I played. And I guess it was weird, like I said, playing a game on Xbox when you know it so well on the PC. I really was frustrated by the fact that I wanted to do certain things and do them quickly, but I just couldn't. And it was because of the controller. I couldn't loot bodies fast. I couldn't aim quickly. There was times where I was inside a house and I was looking through a window at someone and I wanted to shoot them, but I was just too slow to do it. And I couldn't line up my shot fast enough because I'm terrible with the controller. And I was just getting frustrated at that. I was just getting frustrated at myself, not at the game. And that's strictly on me. So, but, overall, I loved it. Like, it was great. It was cool to see Xbox getting the love that the PC gets. Our other friend that we grew up with, Kyle, he's going to play soon on Xbox, so it's bringing us together with him. It's just cool. It's great. I mean, it's going to give the game more exposure, and it's going to make the game better overall. There's absolutely no negatives on the Xbox that are bad enough for me to not recommend it. It's really fun. It's really fun. I want to pop over to chat real quick. Downward Spiral says he hasn't been noticing a lot of car play at the end, not as much as before. Demolition Derby is what some people are saying. KK says it used to be bad when he first started. He had a circle where 8 out of 10 people had cars.
Oh, that would be terrible.
Yeah, because you can get out, but as soon as you get out, someone's going to run you over. Yeah, it ends up being a game of chicken, pretty much. KK says he enjoys the Xbox version. He has a horrible PC, so his frames are low and everyone has godlike aim. But due to everyone playing in the same hardware, no one has a very big advantage over everyone else. That's
a great point. It's harder to get into those core files, and everybody's got the same system. So good luck cheating.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and no one has like 200 frames per second, and you're going against someone who has 20 frames per second. Like everyone has the same level playing ground, and that's pretty awesome. That's a good point.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up everything we had to talk about for the episode, right?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully you guys liked what I had to say about Xbox, and if you didn't, oh well. Like, you can have.
I would like to point out that the next thing on our list is why is Fortnite successful? Do not cover in this episode.
This is going to be another episode. Another episode where we don't really have anything to talk about. I wanted to talk about Fortnite because there's a lot of things about it that make it really popular. And the reason why I want to talk about it, actually, I'm just going to pop into this real fast, is because I have an Instagram and I follow like these stupid meme accounts like Barstool Sports, Old Row.
And they're everywhere.
They love Fortnite. They have made this game cool. And this is the most fascinating thing about it. Is like, since when has a video game been like a cool college bro?
Not since Mario
like,
Kart.
Kind of thing to do. Yeah. It's
since
amazing.
Mario Kart.
Like everyone's making jokes about like, oh, my girlfriend left me for Fortnite. Like there's all these memes about it, and it's always Fortnite. It's always Fortnite. So they, I think, are like carrying the game almost. Like they're making it very popular with that college age crowd, and it's really interesting to see because like I don't know, like how does that happen? Like why was that the game that they chose? So I want to go into that topic a little bit and talk about why we think that that game is popular and what parts about it make it so popular. And I think it starts with free to play. I'll just say that real quick. I think that's my teaser, my announcement for an announcement for you guys out there. But yeah, I think it's free to play is definitely what helps. But and we see PUBG and it does great without free to play. So I just think for some reason there's a whole bunch of little things and they all lined up beautifully for Fortnite, and it's a really interesting case study.
For sure. All right, everybody. So that is the podcast episode number 27. We are going to hop into our Thursday night drop night. We're just going to smoothly transition over here, Daniel.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
And just keep hanging out in the chat, and we'll get started here in a few minutes once the squad gathers. Squad assemble!
Squad.
I really hope that you guys enjoyed this. For you, podcast listeners, thank you so much. We are up over 2,500 downloads in a very short amount of time. We're pretty excited about that. Please like and subscribe. If you don't, that's cool too. Until then, Daniel,
we'll see you in game in 5 minutes.